The silence of the command deck was fractured by an incoming message. "Admiral Trent, we've received preliminary reports from RE-048, said Lieutenant Soto, his voice tight with tension. "Scans confirm high-density predator presence, extreme geological instability, and atmospheric toxicity." Admiral Catherine Trent nodded, eyes narrowing as she looked at the holographic display of the planet below them. To most, RE-048 was a hellscape, a world where even the soil itself seemed hostile. To the 17th Fleet, a battalion of humanity's finest, it was the ultimate challenge. "Typical Deathworld," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else, "and it's in enemy hands." Confirmed, the Veclari forces established a foothold weeks ago. They're using the unstable environment as a defense, knowing most species would never attempt an invasion, Soto said. A smile pulled at the corner of Trent's mouth. They counted on most species, they forgot about humans. The Veclari had dominated countless worlds across the galaxy, and most civilizations cowered at the mention of them. For centuries, they have perfected warfare in harsh conditions, adapting to icy wastelands, boiling deserts, and labyrinthine cave systems. But Deathworlds, even they had limits. As the drop pods jettisoned from the 17th Fleet's flagship, Indomitable, a rare sense of thrill coursed through each Marine. Every soldier knew what this mission meant. Humanity's reputation was on the line. They'd be fighting not only the Veclari, but the very planet itself. Even the most battle-hardened among them had chills as the pods hurtled downwards, slicing through the atmosphere of RE-048 like meteors. Sergeant Alana Reyes checked her gear as her pod's descent slowed, the outer shell of her pod growing red-hot against the atmospheric pressure. Her pulse pounded with anticipation. "All unit, this is Captain Malik. Squad leaders, confirm all personnel landed. Squad, I hear ground contact. We're all intact," Reyes reported. Scanning the rocky terrain around her, the land looked alive, seething with crawling vines and strange, iridescent spores floating on the wind. She motioned her team to fan out. "Weapons at the ready," she called. "Let's show these Veclari who they're dealing with." The air felt thick, almost chokingly humid, and every step seemed to stir the ground itself. Razor-thin fissures spider-webbed underfoot, hissing ominously. Even before encountering the enemy, the planet was a threat, and Reyes could see how most species would hesitate to tread here. But humanity had been born to adapt. They took on worlds most cold, inhospitable, and made them home. It didn't take long for the Veclari to realize their planet-side outposts were under siege, and as they scrambled for weapons, the first thing they heard was the distinctive, metallic hum of human pulse rifles echoing through the canyons. One Veclari outpost, perched precariously on a rocky crag, was manned by Lieutenant Vyrick, a seasoned soldier of his species. He had fought across 3 galaxies, but had never encountered a human force directly. As he peered down through his scope, he saw movement below uniformed figures spreading out with unshakable precision. "Impossible," he muttered, watching as the humans seemed to disappear into the rugged landscape. Before he could react, plasma fire erupted from below, taking out his communications officers in a single, precise shot. Vyrick bared his teeth in fury. "Defensive positions. Humans think they can come to our world and survive." But the 17th Fleet wasn't just surviving, they were advancing, moving through the unpredictable terrain with an ease that unnerved the Veclari forces. Hours passed, each skirmish pushing the humans further into Veclari-held territory. The 17th Fleet's tactics were brutal, their weapons precise. They used the Deathworld itself as an ally, drawing the Veclari into traps, luring them into sinkholes and volcanic vents, exploiting every hostile element the planet threw at them. Captain Malik relayed orders as they advanced. "Let them think the planet's on their side," he growled over the comm. "We'll turn it against them. Reyes, take Squad 8 and set up position near that ridge. The Veclari reinforcements are heading your way." Reyes nodded, motioning her squad forward. Every inch they gained felt earned, but she could see how the relentless push was wearing down the enemy. The Veclari hadn't anticipated humanity's determination or its rage. As night fell, the tide of the battle turned sharply in the humans' favor. Veclari soldiers, exhausted and demoralized, began to retreat. But for the 17th Fleet, retreat wasn't an option. When dawn broke over RE-048, the planet was silent once again, but this time, the silence was victory's calm, not the quiet before the storm. The Veclari stronghold lay in ruins, its former defenders either scattered or fallen. Admiral Trent stood on the bridge of Indomitable, receiving the final report. Planet secured. Admiral Soto confirmed, his voice brimming with satisfaction. The Veclari didn't see it coming. Trent allowed herself a rare smile. They thought a Deathworld would be their sanctuary from us. She paused, taking one last look at RE048 on the monitor. But if humanity's history has proven anything, it's that Deathworlds are where we thrive. The battle was over, but for the 17th Fleet and for all of humanity, the message was clear. There was no ground too dangerous, no enemy too fierce, and no world too deadly for those who have faced the worst of Earth's trials. In the unforgiving light of RE048's sun, the 17th Fleet had shown the galaxy that humanity would not just survive, they would dominate. 2 days after humanity's decisive victory on RE048, the 17th Fleet was busy fortifying its new hold on the planet. Human engineers worked with breakneck efficiency, setting up perimeter defenses and establishing strongholds across the unstable terrain. The Veclari had underestimated humanity once. It was unlikely they'd make the same mistake again. Admiral Catherine Trent observed the planet from the Indomitable's bridge, her sharp eyes studying the scans that relayed every movement within the atmosphere. The reports were clear. The Veclari weren't giving up so easily. Captain Malik, she called over the comms. Any activity on the ground? Malik's voice crackled through the line. Yes, Admiral. Scout drones are picking up Veclari troop movements across the eastern region. Seems like they're regrouping. Trent's lips thinned. She'd expected the Veclari to retaliate, and she knew they wouldn't be holding back this time. They're not going to try small skirmishes anymore. They're coming for us with everything they've got. Hours later, the first wave of Veclari forces struck. Advanced assault mechs thundered across the horizon, each a walking arsenal bristling with plasma cannons and missile pods. The Veclari had adapted quickly, shielding their forces against the unstable environment, and they launched a merciless barrage at the human fortifications. Sergeant Alana Reyes stood atop one of the fortified bunkers, surveying the field through her visor. They brought the big guns this time, she muttered, feeling the ground shake beneath her as Veclari artillery struck just ahead. Her squad exchanged tense looks. They had known this day was coming, but seeing the sheer scale of the enemy force was another matter entirely. Reyes felt a surge of grim determination. If the Veclari wanted a fight, they'd get one. Squad A, take positions and prepare for heavy assault. We'll hold the line here, she commanded, her voice unwavering. The Veclari mechs pushed forward, their advance methodical, relentless. Plasma blasts pounded the ground, each explosion sending shockwaves through the unstable terrain. Human artillery and anti-armor missiles launched in response, painting the sky with trails of smoke and light as they met the incoming Veclari forces head-on. Back aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Trent observed the battle from the tactical station. The Veclari numbers were staggering, but Trent had an ace up her sleeve. Humanity had spent centuries in the art of asymmetrical warfare, mastering tactics that combined raw firepower with ingenuity. Release the dreadnoughts, she ordered, her voice calm and cold. The Indomitable's hangars roared to life as a squadron of dreadnought-class drones, a product of cutting-edge human engineering, launched from the flagship. Each dreadnought was armed with cluster bombs and autonomous targeting systems designed to pinpoint and exploit the weaknesses in Veclari armor. The drones streaked across the sky like hawks diving for prey, weaving through plasma fire to strike at the enemy mechs, joints and power cores. One by one, the towering machines faltered, crippled as their weak points were systematically targeted. On the ground, Reyes watched in awe as the dreadnoughts carved through the Veclari assault force. Their relentless offensive was beginning to crumble. But just as victory seemed close, a tremor shook the ground beneath them, sending Reyes staggering. The Deathworld wasn't done with them yet. Seismic activity is spiking, shouted Lieutenant Soto over the comms. An earthquake's coming, and it's going to be big. Captain Malik's voice came through, tense but controlled. All units, brace for impact and keep moving forward. We're using this. The earth erupted as fault lines ripped open, swallowing Veclari forces and human defensive positions alike. Reyes held onto a support beam, yelling orders to keep her team steady as the ground split and buckled around them. But amidst the chaos, an idea formed. Reyes called up to Malik, her voice sharp. Sir, We can use the tremors to create a defensive barrier. If we time it right, we can funnel the Veclari into the open. Malik gave her a brief pause. You've got 2 minutes. Make it happen. Reyes rallied her squad, setting explosive charges along a full line. When this goes off, it'll divert the Veclari right into the kill zone, she explained quickly. Get clear and hold tight. As her squad retreated, Reyes triggered the detonator. The charges exploded, widening the fissure and sending the Veclari forces stumbling into the open terrain where human artillery lay waiting. With the Veclari pinned, Admiral Trent seized the moment. All ships, fire at will, she commanded. From orbit, the Indomitable unleashed a devastating bombardment. The sky lit up as ship-based railguns and high-yield plasma beams rained down on the Veclari, carving deep craters into the land. The combination of the quake, the drones, and the precision strikes shattered the enemy line. Finally, as the dust settled, the battlefield grew silent. Hours later, Captain Malik and Sergeant Reyes surveyed the ravaged landscape. The Veclari had retreated, their forces decimated by both human strategy and the unpredictable wrath of RE-048 itself. Reyes shook her head, a fierce pride glinting in her eyes. Deathworld. For the Veclari, maybe. For us, it was just another battlefield. Malik clapped a hand on her shoulder. Good work out there, Sergeant. Humanity's got a foothold on this rock, and I think the galaxy just learned that there's nowhere we can go. Admiral Trent's voice came over the comms, her tone calm but fierce. The Veclari will come for us again, but they'll know that humanity is ready and that no world, no matter how deadly, will stand in our way. The 17th Fleet had not only claimed a victory, they had sent a message. Humanity wasn't just here to survive the galaxy's deadliest challenges, they were here to conquer them. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. The Veclari High Command was reeling. Reports streamed in from across the sector, detailing humanity's brutal and strategic dominance on RE-048. This wasn't just a setback, it was a humiliating blow to their supremacy. If they lost control of a Deathworld to humans, who would ever fear them again? So they made their move. The Veclari mobilized one of their largest remaining fleets and redirected it to RE-048, intent on overwhelming the humans in a final, decisive strike. They wouldn't underestimate humanity this time. Every available warship, soldier, and weapon was to be thrown at the humans in a relentless wave. On RE-048, the 17th Fleet was readying itself for what every soldier knew would be the fiercest battle yet. Admiral Trent stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, eyes fixed on the tactical display, showing the Veclari fleet approaching fast. Admiral, we're detecting over 50 Veclari ships on intercept course, Lieutenant Soto reported, his voice tense. They're not playing around. Trent nodded, unfazed. Then we won't, either, bring the fleet into a defensive formation around the planet. We'll make them fight for every inch. She opened a fleet-wide channel, her voice a steady anchor in the building storm. All units, this is Admiral Trent. We're facing one of the largest Veclari fleets assembled. They think they can break us here. They believe we're just another obstacle. She paused, letting her words sink in, but they're wrong. We're humanity's best, and today, we show them what that means. Cheers and affirmations rang through the comms. Every soldier felt the weight of Trent's words. They weren't just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for humanity's place in the stars. As the Veclari fleet entered orbit, the silence of space was shattered by the opening salvo. The Veclari ships launched a coordinated barrage, brilliant arcs of plasma fire, streaking across the void toward the human fleet. The Indomitable and its accompanying ships responded in kind, unleashing a deadly storm of missiles and railgun rounds. Captain Malik coordinated the ground defenses, knowing the Veclari would attempt to land forces on the planet itself. Reyes, we've got to assume they'll break through our orbital defense. Get your squad ready for close quarters combat. If they land, they'll be desperate. They'll fight like cornered animals. Sergeant Reyes' voice crackled over the line. Understood, sir. Squad A's locked and loaded. We'll show them how humanity does close quarters. In orbit, the battle raged fiercely. The Indomitable weaved through waves of incoming fire, its shields absorbing impacts while countermeasures deflected missiles. The Veclari were throwing everything they had, their ships maneuvering in a tight formation to overwhelm the humans with sheer force. On the bridge, Admiral Trent issued rapid commands, directing the fleet to exploit gaps in the Veclari's positioning, target their lead destroyers, break their formation and force them to spread out. Humanity's ships, though fewer in number, were faster and more agile. The 17th Fleet pilots executed daring maneuvers, flanking Veclari ships and disabling their engines as Veclari vessels drifted helplessly. Human strike teams boarded, taking control and turning the enemy's own weapons against them. But despite their skill, the Veclari numbers were taking their toll. One of the smaller human frigates, Resolute, took a direct hit to its reactor. The blast lit up the darkness as the ship went down, its crew's last message a salute to humanity. Soto clenched his fists, watching as the frigate vanished from the tactical display. Admiral, we're sustaining heavy losses. Trent's gaze was steely. Then we hold harder. The longer we stay in this fight, the harder it will be for them to take our 0 for 8. On the ground, the Veclari broke through, landing pods crashing down in waves. Reyes and her squad watched as the pods touched down, their hulls glowing from the atmospheric entry. The instant they hit the ground, Veclari soldiers poured out, armed and ready. Squad A, let's give them a warm welcome, Reyes said with a grin. Raising her rifle, she fired the first shot, hitting a Veclari soldier square in the chest before they had even cleared their pod. Her squad followed suit, unleashing a torrent of gunfire that cut down the Veclari forces before they could find cover. But the Veclari kept coming, wave after wave, each more determined than the last. The air filled with the hum of pulse rifles and the crack of explosions. Reyes ducked behind cover, motioning to her squad to fall back to their second defensive line. They retreated, drawing the Veclari into the labyrinthine network of trenches and barricades they built over the past days. Reyes had studied the terrain meticulously, using the natural fissures and rock formations to create a maze for the enemy. The Veclari would have to fight for every step, and Reyes would make sure each one cost them dearly. The orbital battle was reaching a fever pitch. The Veclari had lost nearly half their fleet, but their sheer numbers kept pushing the 17th Fleet to the brink. Admiral Trent watched as one of the Veclari battleships fired a devastating plasma lance toward the Indomitable. She braced as the ship's shields absorbed the impact, flickering and straining under the assault. Status on that shield generator, she demanded. Shields are at critical, Admiral, Soto replied, panic seeping into his voice. Trent gritted her teeth. Divert all remaining power to the forward shields. We can let them breach. Just then, a transmission crackled through from one of the damaged Veclari. Cruisers, a human boarding team, had seized control. The voice on the other end was rough but triumphant. Admiral, this is Lieutenant Carson. We've got control of their plasma array. Permission to turn it on their own fleet. A grin broke across Trent's face. Permission granted. The commandeered Veclari cruiser turned its plasma array toward the nearest enemy vessel, firing with lethal precision. One by one, Veclari ships fell as their own weaponry was turned against them. On the surface, Reyes and her squad were nearing exhaustion, their ammo nearly depleted. The Veclari just kept coming. Seemingly undeterred by the brutal losses, Reyes crouched behind a boulder, sweat pouring down her face as she reloaded.